So we might start now, if that's okay. Firstly, must acknowledge the traditional owners of the custodians of the lands and waters that we're meeting on all across Queensland and a couple of other states, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we certainly acknowledge the importance and practical role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play within our communities and across the nation. So today, next slide, I think needs to come up. We're talking about ACNC registration process for Landcare, Queensland Water and Landcare members and others across Queensland. And we're very pleased to have Luke and Gulnaar from the ACNC. There's a brief little bio slide, which hasn't appeared yet either, that just talks about what their roles are. And for those of you, when you look at the next slide, where it says for support state charities, I went and looked it up so that I knew, so we'll test whether I'm correct. Self-assessing income tax exempt charities. So I think I've got that right. So very much like to welcome Gulnaar and Luke, and they will take us through a presentation. We will stick to time and there will be opportunities for questions which you can place in the chat, or we may have some time at the end. So over to you.
Thank you, Daryl. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a great opportunity for us to be here and share some information with all of you. I will start by sharing my slide and making sure that everyone can see and hear me. So just bear with me while I quickly set that up.
You're muted, Daryl.
That's good.
Gulnaar, I think you're on mute.
Well,
Or it's one of those opportunities where we've gone into the endless universe.
It seems that...
I think you might need to share without sharing the audio, maybe.
Okay, all right, let me try it that way. Share again. Okay, can people see the screen and hear me?
Perfect.
Excellent, thank you. So before I start, as I was saying, in terms of some housekeeping, and we're conscious of the time, so we'll go through the slides, and then if there are any questions that you have, if you can please post them in the chat or hold on to them till the end when we'll hopefully have some time to answer your questions. So I will start. Now, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and elders past and present. Quickly want to take you through the agenda for today. So we've divided this session into 4 parts. So we'll start with helping you understand the not-for-profit sector, because in our engagement with peak bodies and individual not-for-profit entities, we found that there's still so much of confusion about what exactly is involved and what are the different obligations and who do you report to for what. So we'll quickly touch upon that. Then I'll also go into what are the benefits of registering as a charity with the ACNC. And then I'll hand it over to Luke, who will talk through what the charity registration process involves, including bulk registration. And he'll also briefly touch upon what happens once you register as a charity with ACNC, but it will be very high level. So he'll talk about governance and ongoing obligations for registered charities. we have included a few important links to resources which you could look at your own free time. And obviously, you're always welcome to reach out to us after the webinar if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. So go on to the next slide, and starting with understanding the not-for-profit sector. In session with Landcare New South Wales, there were a lot of questions about what a not-for-profit means, and what are some of the myths around not-for-profits. So I've tried to explain them in some detail in this section. So what is a not-for-profit? So it is an organization that has been established to serve a purpose, but not to provide financial benefits or private benefits to individuals. The important thing to remember is a not-for-profit, though it can make a profit, but it cannot operate or does not operate for the profit, personal gain, or other benefits of particular people. For example, an organization cannot call itself a not-for-profit if it's operating for the benefit of its members or the people who run the organization, or for their friends or relatives. So the important thing to remember is its assets and income must continue to support that purpose that it was originally set up for. And this must be done throughout the life of the organization, and even when the organization winds up or closes. This is one of the very common questions we often get. Can a not-for-profit actually make a profit? And the answer is yes. A not-for-profit can generate a surplus or a profit. However, the important thing to remember is that it needs to be used to further the organization's purpose, not for private benefit of individuals. Now, the profits can be reinvested in programs and services. They can be set aside for future projects or infrastructure, or they can be retained as reserves to support long-term sustainability. And I've got examples for each one of those points further down. As I've said before, an important thing to always keep in mind is that a not-for-profit entity should use its resources to advance its purpose. Holding significant profits indefinitely and without applying them towards that purpose may raise questions about whether the organization is operating genuinely as a not-for-profit. Now, an example of where a not-for-profit has reinvested its profit in programs and services. The example here is that of a mental health charity, which uses its annual surplus to, for example, expand its counseling services, or recruit additional volunteers, or deliver more community workshops. For an example where a not-for-profit set aside the profits for future projects or infrastructure, it can be a community organization which retains profits over several years because it has an aim to purchase a permanent community center, or to upgrade its IT systems, or to build a new disability accessible facility. And an example of where a not-for-profit has retained its profits as reserves to support long-term sustainability. You can look at an example where a charity maintains a reserve of 6 to 12 months of operating costs, just to make sure that if there's any unexpected funding shortfalls, it has those reserves to use. Or if there are emergencies or natural disasters, it can use that surplus to address that, or to maintain services during periods of reduced income. And later, when you have access to our resources, you'll see that we in fact encourage not-for-profits to be sustainable, and part of that sustainable governance is to make sure that you're managing your finances well. It's part of that good governance overall focus. Moving from not-for-profits to charities, because one thing, again, there's another common misconception about what is the difference between a charity and a not-for-profit. So if you look at that little visual there, I hope that makes it clear that the not-for-profit sector is the overall bigger sector, and charities are just one part of it. So as it says, all charities are not-for-profit, but all not-for-profits are not charities. So a registered charity or a charity is actually a type of not-for-profit. And in addition to all the things that I've already said about, what are the characteristics of not-for-profits, in terms of a registered charity, the important thing to remember is that it must only have charitable purposes that are for the public benefit. And this is where it applies to you when you apply for charity registration with the ACNC. Moving on to what is the role of the ACNC in the not-for-profit sector. So we are quite a young agency compared to some of the older agencies, say like the Australian Taxation Office. So the ACNC is the national regulator of charities, and it was established in December 2012 to achieve the following objects. And the first one is to maintain, protect, and enhance public trust and confidence in the Australian not-for-profit sector, to support and sustain a robust, vibrant, independent, and innovative not-for-profit sector, and to promote the reduction of unnecessary regulatory obligations on the sector. And as someone who's worked for the ACNC for almost 7 years, I can always see the link to the work that I do and to the objectives for which the ACNC was established. So we are very much entrenched and focused on meeting these objects in all the work that we do. What do we do? So in terms of the functions, the ACNC registers new charities. We also maintain a free public charity register where anyone can access the information about registered charities. We regulate charities with the focus being on reporting and compliance. We also provide advice, guidance, and education. And I'm proud to say, as someone who's worked in the advice services area and the education and public affairs area of the ACNC, that this is one of our strengths. And we are known to be a very approachable regulator, and a regulator which invests a lot of time and energy in the education component. And so you will hopefully find our resources to be really useful in that regard. And we've also done a lot of really good work in the reduction of red tape for charities. And in one of the upcoming slides, I will touch upon how it applies to charities in Queensland as well. Because the ATO also plays a very big role in the not-for-profit sector, I thought it's important to just quickly touch upon what the ATO's role is. So where we are responsible for the registering and the regulation of charities, the ATO is responsible for the administration and the endorsement of tax concessions. For example, it could be the goods and services tax, fringe and benefit tax. It's also responsible for the administration and endorsement of tax exemption, which if you're a registered charity, you can access, and the deductible gift recipient status, which is if you have that endorsement, and if someone makes a donation to your charity, they can claim a deduction for this on the tax returns. We'll just quickly now look at how the ACNC and the ATO work together. So charity applicants can apply for ATO tax concessions as part of the ACNC Charity Registration process. So what happens is that we get the application from an applicant, we assess it on its merit and whether it's eligible. If the charity registration is granted, we then forward the tax concessions part of the application to the ATO. And then it's up to the ATO to assess the eligibility for the tax concession, and it makes the final decision in terms of the tax concession. And then the ATO notifies the applicant of the outcome of the tax concession or exemption part. What it means for you as an applicant is that it's a streamlined process. Instead of you having to submit one application to the ACNC for the charity registration part and one to the ATO for the tax concession, you can just do it in one form with us, and we then pass on the necessary information to the ATO. Having said that, if an applicant doesn't apply for the tax concessions at the time of charity registration, you always have the option to apply for those tax concessions directly with the ATO at a later time. So that option is always there. Moving on to Section 2 and benefits of charity registration. We will touch upon how registering as a charity with the ACNC can benefit your organization. So, what does a charitable status with the ACNC bring for your organization? First of all, you get the recognition that the organization is a charity under Australian law. It's obviously, as I said earlier, determined and regulated by us. You get access to certain tax concessions from the ATO, income tax exemption, fringe benefit tax concessions, GST, and DGI endorsement, obviously, depending on eligibility. One thing to remember is, and this is again where there's a lot of confusion in the sector and among the public, that just because a charity is registered with us, it does not mean that it automatically gets endorsement as a DGR where someone can claim tax deduction. It depends on eligibility and the approval process by the ATO. Benefits of charity registration. It builds trust and credibility. As I said, we do maintain a free public charity register, and I'm not sure whether you have used it before, but I have certainly used it even before I started working for the ACNC. Whenever I've looked at a charity and wanted to make an informed decision whether I should make donations to that charity. So having that kind of information publicly available, it signals transparency and accountability. The second benefit is that governance support. We have a clear legal framework under the Charities Act, and there's a lot of guidance on governance and compliance. And one of the feedback we've often got from the sector is that it's easy to understand and it's easily accessible. So it really helps the sector to understand what their obligations are as registered charities. It can also help you to unlock funding opportunities because you could be eligible for government and philanthropic grants. Often grants may have that condition that you need to be a registered charity, and they often look, grant makers also access the charity register to check if a particular applicant is registered with us. And there can be that increased attractiveness to funders if you're a registered charity, again, because they can look at the information publicly available and make an informed choice. It can be a pathway to deductible gift recipient endorsement, again, if your organization is eligible for that. So it enables the tax deductible donations, and it helps to strengthen your fundraising capability. Benefits also include the work that we've done in the red tape reduction area. So the ACNC works to reduce unnecessary regulatory burden by promoting a report once, use often approach. So we share charity information across different government agencies. We also have streamlined reporting arrangements across Commonwealth, state, and territory regulators. And this work is ongoing, and there is always a lot of consultation and engagement with the different agencies and regulators to continuously improve the process and make the different type of reporting obligations streamlined and easier for charities to comply with. Now, coming to Queensland and what it means for incorporated associations in Queensland. So many Queensland charities do operate as incorporated associations under the Association Incorporation Act of 1981 and are regulated by the Queensland Office of Fair Trading. I'm sure many of the members for your peak body are as well. And so you must be aware that as a registered incorporated association with the Office of Fair Trading, you do have ongoing obligations to them, including maintaining financial records, complying with the rules, and holding annual general meetings. Where being registered with ACNC as a charity, along with being an incorporated association under the Office of Fair Trading, where you may benefit from this charity registration is that we now have a streamlined reporting initiative. So since the 2022 annual information statement, that's the annual reporting obligation to charities, as we call it, the annual information statement. So from the 2022 financial year, eligible charities that are both ACNC registered charities and Queensland incorporated associations can meet their annual reporting obligations to the Office of Fair Trading through the annual information statement, the ACNC annual information statement. So what that means is before 2022, or even now, if you don't avail of this streamlined reporting feature, you will have to submit one report to us, which is the annual information statement, and you also have to submit a separate annual return to the Office of Fair Trading. And there's a cost involved as well for the Office of Fair Trading. For ACNC, there is no cost involved either with registering with us as a charity or with your reporting obligations every year. So not only does it mean that you do not have to pay that additional fee to the Office of Fair Trading, I think the biggest benefit is that, as volunteers, you have your commitments in your personal life and you are volunteering and committing to doing something, for the greater good of the community. By having the access to the streamlined reporting initiative, you can spend more of your time investing it in doing, investing it in the projects that you are passionate about, and having that streamlined reporting option available for you. So it's just reporting once to us, and we pass on that information to the Office of Fair Trading on your behalf. We have similar fundraising, streamlined fundraising reporting arrangements. So there are two aspects to this. The first one is that if a charity is registered in Queensland and you're authorized to fundraise, you don't have to register separately with the Office of Fair Trading. There is a streamlined charity ACNC registration notification form that you can use from the Office of Fair Trading website. So it's definitely less involved than the standard form that you may have had to use or other charities may have to use. Similarly, for annual reporting for fundraising, since the 2022 AIS, if a charity is eligible and authorized to fundraise in Queensland, you can do the same fundraising part of the reporting again through our annual information statement. You do not have to lodge a separate annual return with the Office of Fair Trading. All you have to do is provide your organization's fundraising registration number on our form, and we will pass on the information to the Office of Fair Trading. And we've been doing it for a few years, and it's mainly straightforward, and the information passes through. If there are any issues with information not going through, it's charities contact us and we workshop with them and see where the issue is. So that support is always there. So just quickly to wrap it up, how the ACNC registration can help and benefit you. There's one reporting pathway through the annual information statement. There's no separate annual return to the Queensland Office of Fair Trading for eligible charities. There's a reduced administrative burden and compliance costs. You have more time and resources focused on delivering your charitable outcomes. There's better alignment of state and Commonwealth regulatory requirements. So the main key takeaway, as I said earlier, is ACNC registration helps you spend less time on reporting and more time supporting your communities and, working towards your purpose. I will hand it to Luke now. I'll just put myself on mute first. Bear with me.
Thanks, Gulnaar, and good afternoon, everyone. As Gulnaar mentioned earlier, I'll take you through the next part of the presentation, which we've lost Gulnaar's screen. Oh, there we go. Which will take you through the charity registration process and briefly touch on some of the ongoing requirements for charities once registered. So I thought it's important to start with part of the reason why we're here and what has sort of prompted the interest of Landcare groups in registering with the ACNC. Now, the ATO made changes back in 2022-2023 financial year, which required non-charitable not-for-profits with an active ABN to lodge an annual not-for-profit self-review return. So some of you may have done that on behalf of your organisation. Some may not be aware of this at all, but it was a big change that came through quite a few years ago. and there have now been, I think, 2 or 3 financial years where that reporting has been due. Essentially, essentially for organisations like Landcare groups, what this means is because you're charitable, not-for-profits, organisations that meet the definition of a charity cannot continue to self-assess as income tax exempt. So rather than completing that reporting to the ATO annually, the expectation is you'll register as a charity with the ACNC and report to us instead. And as Gulnaar mentioned, there are additional benefits with that. The main one being the ATO can endorse you as income tax exempt. And that's a status that lays with the charity each year. There's no need to self-assess that each year. It is a status that is held during the entirety of the charitable registration period. Next slide, thanks, Gulnaar. So what does this mean? As I mentioned, it means that Landcare members that are charitable must register with the ACNC and be formally endorsed. The last point is important here. If charitable not-for-profits do not choose not to register as a charity, your organisation may be treated as taxable. Now, that's something that sits with the ATO, but it is something to be aware of. If the ATO does treat your organisation as taxable, your organisation will be required to lodge tax returns and pay income tax. So there are quite a number of benefits with ACNC registration. Now, the criteria for registration. Organisations must be not-for-profit, and Gulnaar spoke about what that means, must only have charitable purposes that are for the public benefit, not have any disqualifying purposes. So, for example, promoting a particular political candidate or political party, or engaging in unlawful activities, and also not be an individual, political party, or a government entity. Organisations must have an active ABN and a governing document. We also may refer to these as model rules or constitution, which includes its purposes and objects. Registered charities must also comply with the ACNC's governance standards and, if operating overseas, our external conduct standards. Now, mainly because of these reforms, we have seen quite a large increase in the number of registration applications we're receiving. And we've been working with peak bodies like Queensland Water and Landcarers and other Landcare groups across Australia to sort of simplify the process and help organisations register in a more efficient process. So currently our queue is 11 weeks, touching on 12 weeks. So that's from the process of submitting the application to actually being assigned to an analyst for consideration. So what we've done is I lead a specific team that processes these applications and any inquiries in a much quicker manner. We are essentially set up to deal with these applications specifically. And we also have a bulk registration application form. Now, this is where peak bodies like Queensland Water and Landcarers can apply for registration on behalf of multiple organisations at once. We've worked with Mary Lou and Daryl, and we've shared a template document where the peak body can essentially gather the information necessary for registration from members and then provide that to us on an Excel spreadsheet. Given the similarities that occur between most Landcare groups in activities and policies, etc., generally it takes us around a fortnight to consider these applications, so much less than the standard queue. And that also means that the applications are of a more better quality, for example. Now, in terms of preparing for the application, the first thing is the ABN. We highly recommend organisations to make sure that the entity type on their ABN matches their correct legal structure. So, for example, if you are an incorporated association, the entity type should read as other incorporated entity, unincorporated, other unincorporated entity. If this is incorrect and you find this, please contact the Australian Business Register and fix this before registering with the ACNC. When we receive applications, because this is outside of our domain, we're unable to actually process the application. So we do generally send it back for resubmission and ask that this is addressed beforehand. Also note that the Australian Business Register may issue you a new ABN. So if you are issued a new ABN, make sure you're applying to us with that new ABN. And essentially choosing the right date. So the form will also ask for which date registration is sought. You can select the later of your ABN start date or the date of incorporation with the state-based regulator. The other date to note is the earliest we can backdate is to the 3rd of December 2012, which is, as Gulnaar mentioned, when we were created. Generally, when we receive applications, if you have submitted a different date, we'll get in contact to advise you of the most appropriate date and seek confirmation and register you from that date. The next thing is their governing document. These are also called the constitution, rules, or if you have a trust or a fund, the trust deed. The governing document you provide must include the organisation's name, its purposes or charitable objects, a not-for-profit clause, and a winding up clause. We ask that you do not submit a draft version to us. It must be the final and approved version. It must match your legal structure, and you can choose to use a template. The two most common templates that will be applicable here are the model rules for incorporated associations, which you can find on the Queensland Fair Trading website or give them a call. And for unincorporated associations, the ACNC's template for unincorporated associations is on our website. Both of those documents do suit our registration requirements. They do include a not-for-profit clause and winding up clause. We do ask, though, if you are using a template to make sure you've filled in all of the necessary parts, and you can make alterations to suit the needs of your organisation as required. The next thing are responsible people. Now, the responsible people are generally the board or governing members or the committee of an organisation. These people are responsible for how the charity is run and must act in the charity's best interest. The application form will ask you to submit the details of these responsible people, including their name, phone number, and position they hold. It's important that you list the correct number of responsible people, as is the minimum required by your governing document. So have a look at that section of the governing document and see what the minimum requirement is there. These generally, in case you're unsure of who they are, it's generally the people who make key decisions, set direction and strategy, and oversee finances. So anybody from the president to the treasurer, the secretary, vice president, etc. Further information. When preparing the application, it's important to choose the correct subtype. The subtype you choose must match your charitable purpose or objects, and you can use your governing document as the guide here. Generally, for Landcare groups, the most suitable subtype would be advancing the natural environment. Others may have additional purposes as well, which we can consider as well. In the application form, you also must show that the organisation has good governance. You can do this by providing details on how you manage conflicts of interest and finances responsibly. In speaking with Mary earlier, I know that there will be some information on the Queensland Water and Landcare's website, and we also have a number of helpful tips and tricks on our website as well, including a template conflict of interest policy, which you may choose to adopt. And as I mentioned, I'll quickly go over some of the governance and ongoing obligations once you are registered as a charity. The first one being that the organisation must continue to operate as a not-for-profit and have a charitable purpose. So it's not a tick and forget. Once it's registered, that's fine. If you do change your structure or choose to operate as a for-profit, the organisation must seek voluntary revocation with the ACNC and continue to operate outside of the ACNC. For some organisations, a charitable purpose may change over time, and you may change your objects. That's not an issue. As long as you're still operating as a charitable purpose, you can provide us with a new governing document with your new purposes at any time. You must notify the ACNC of changes at your charity, and there are requirements, timeframes. Generally, for small charities, this is in 60 days to notify us of changes to your name, governing document, or the responsible people for the charity. The charities must keep accurate and well-maintained records, must report annually to us through completing the annual information statement, and continue to comply with the ACNC governance standards and the external conduct standards if operating overseas. And there's some quite a helpful pamphlet on our website as well, which we'll send you the link for afterwards. The annual information statement is something that I think could overwhelm some people when thinking of registration. I assure you, it's not a very detailed process. There are some components, but we generally do ask this. And as Gulnaar mentioned, it is also in lieu of having to report to Queensland Fair Trading as well if you are incorporated. So reporting once, getting everything at the first go. The first questions generally will ask about your activities and purpose. So what are the main activities or programs you conducted in that financial year? And who are the beneficiaries and how these activities align with your charitable purpose? The next, you'll be able to review the current responsible people that we have on hand, including end dating people who are no longer with the organisation, adding new responsible people, and providing some details about the number of staff, including part-time, full-time, and casual staff, and also volunteers of the organisation. There are then some financial questions, so particularly about income and expenses, as well as assets and liabilities. If your organisation earns over has an income greater than 500,000 in a year, you will be required to submit a financial report as well. So anything under 500,000 in revenue a year, you do not need to provide us with a financial report. It's just filling in these financial questions in the AIS. Also, some other questions we'll ask around changes to charity details, including the address for service email, which is very important. That's the email address that we will continue to contact you if we have any need to contact you for or your organisation, and also to provide helpful reminders when the annual information statement is due. Some other information about related party transactions, use of resources, and funding as well. As Gulnaar mentioned as well, there is also questions about fundraising, etc., which help to meet those obligations with other regulators. This slide here shows a bit of the sharing charity information. So you'll be aware that we do share the information with Queensland Fair Trading to meet that obligation there, and also the fundraising obligations. But we do also share information in other ways. So the annual information statement that you submit each year is viewable on the public ACNC Charity Register. If your organisation submits a financial report, that will also be viewable on the register. That information is then shared, obviously, to the public through the register, to other government agencies through our secure charity passport, and also with data.gov.au. This is used by researchers. It's used to inform our understanding of the sector as a whole. And this information is also used annually in our charities report. We just lodged one a few weeks ago, and it's great that we're able to see the difference in the charity sector and not-for-profit sector over quite a few years. And what we've seen recently is there has been a slight uptick in a number of volunteers, which decreased over COVID. And so it's a great thing for us to be able to show that data to government and other people to talk about the strength of the sector. And the next slides, as we've mentioned in the chat, we will send a PDF through, which hopefully will be on the website. There's a number of helpful information here, including pamphlets and other information, both from the ACNC, but also from the ATO. You'll see there information about deductible gift recipient status, as we mentioned earlier, and income tax exemption. We've also provided some helpful links to the Fair Trading website as well for incorporated associations and fundraising requirements as well. So on that note, I think we're happy to take any questions. I will just check the chat first. I think there was one from Lynn here. Are we still required to lodge? So that's a great question. So when you first register with us, you are required to provide us a copy of your constitution. If you do make changes to your constitution while registered with us, it is a requirement to lodge that with the state regulator, so Queensland Fair Trading, and with us as well. If we do require any amendments to your governing document prior to registration, for example, if some of the clauses aren't up to our standard, or we need amendments to the objects to meet the charitable purposes, you will be required to provide that to the Fair Trading before you provide that to us as well. So that is one of the requirements that still has to meet both. Mary Lou?
So, Luke, if groups are fundraising, they require through the Queensland government a charity number, but when you go to the website, it sort of says, if you don't answer this question, just say no fundraising, and then register with the ACNC. Then if you go to the Queensland government and tell them that you're registered with ACNC, then they will say it's okay for you to fundraise. So, I mean, but do our groups need that charity number if they're going to fundraise for?
So this is one of the things that I think confuses people. When you're registered with the ACNC, there is no charity number. It's not a concept we have. We use the ABN as essentially the identifying number. So any charity number that's required by another regulator may be something that's solely with them. We don't issue charities with a number per se. We use their ABN.
So on the form that we do fill out, it says provide your organisation fundraising licence number.
So that would be something that's... Go on, Gulnaar.
Sorry, Mary. So which form are you referring to? Are you referring to the...
When you make ACNC application, because I did this for another group and we do fundraise, it asked, did you fundraise? And we said yes. And then it required our state registration number to fundraise. Now, a lot of volunteer groups in Queensland wouldn't know that you're supposed to have a number from the Queensland government to actually fundraise. And so if you say yes to that question, then it will ask you for a number.
Can we take that question and notice and go back and actually have a look at that specific scenario, and we'll come back to you. So you're saying this is for a registration application form where it asks you for...
For the ACNC, it says, does your organisation engage in or intend to engage in fundraising? If yes, select the state. So it'll be Queensland. And then it says, provide your organisation's fundraising licence number. Now, I know in Queensland that you apply to Treasury for that number.
We'll take that question and notice and get back to you in terms of what the appropriate response should be and what should the workaround be for you. Thank you.
Can I just say thank you very much to Gulnaar and Luke, and thanks to Mary Lou for always asking interesting questions. Please put questions into the chat if you want. This is a good opportunity to get some either very direct responses quickly or to have things put on notice. So I'd encourage you, unless you're all so excited that you're all off filling in your ACNC form. So I'm not seeing much activity in the chat.
So, Darryl, I'd also like to suggest that if members, when they digest this, do have a question, to email yourself or I. Yes. So we are to walk. Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at the interest. So we've been talking with the ACNC for a while, and we first asked the question of all of our members, either this year or last year, about, are you registered with the ACNC? So we know that about 250 of our 500 groups are registered. So we think that there'll be some interest there for groups to go through the bulk registration process, apart from, as was identified, it's much, much quicker. And you can also access Mary Lou and myself in filling in the form for help. But we're intending to, we think, we might only do 50 to start with, because that's the interest that we've got, but I'm certainly willing to work with groups to engage in that process. Well, hopefully you're not all on silent, but that looks like, hang on. Oh, Andrea and Mary Lou are having a conversation amongst themselves. Always love that.
Raffles
But-
is fundraising.
If there are no further questions, we won't keep you any longer than we need to. So thank you very much to Gulnaar and Luke for sharing the information with us. And certainly we would encourage you all to, if you're not registered with the ACNC, and firstly, you can do that through us with a bulk registration. And if you have any questions, as Mary Lou said, please give us a call or drop us an email, and I'll get ChatGPT to respond to you because it's much quicker. So it's great to see you all. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that some of you are already registered, so that's very useful to for us to know that you're already registered, but you still found this interesting. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.